Okay, so our guest today is Kerilyn Russo, and she is the 44-year-old mama to almost 6-year-old Leonardo, certified coach and leader in the process of healing herself so that she can do her part to help heal the world. So, welcome, Kerilyn. I'm excited to
Hi,
have you on.
I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so very much for thinking about me.
So I've been seeing a lot of your journey on Facebook lately, and it's just been so amazing to watch you open up and share so vulnerably, like what's been going on in your journey so far. Um, would you like to kind of give people just a brief overview of what's been going on in your life just recently so that we can move into, I think we're going to talk about codependency versus weakness and things like that. But just a little bit more like what's been going on with you.
Absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity to sort of give a little debrief before we go into anything else. So I have always had, probably like you, an understanding that I'm here to do something, make a large impact in the world. From a very young age, I knew that. I've always been sort of the odd man out. And so I call me strange, but I've always had this like wacky thing where I'm a talker, I'm a speaker, I go first. I call myself a Pied Piper. And so I share my experiences. I started going so far back as 2001 when I between my college roommate and I, we would send an email back and forth to each other every day about the highs and lows of our day. And this is before email lists, but I ended up getting up to like 70 people every day where I would send these emails. And it was just sharing and and I would get great feedback. So I just knew that I'm here to like use my words and so I have been on a journey, as you have as well, and all of us. I had my son in October of 2013, and my ex-husband and I had been together for a long time. And when he was born, I noticed a shift almost immediately in the hospital. And over the course of 4 years, I discovered who I was, who my ex-husband is, although he's not diagnosed. So I can't say for like illegal purposes that he's diagnosed on the spectrum of narcissism, but and it sort of the more I learned about myself, the more it has just illuminated my entire life, and the stronger that I feel like I have to share this, because I'm sure like you feel like there's a shift coming and is in process right now where we can no longer stay quiet to the things that we have long been quiet to.
Right.
You can say the patriarchal shift and I'm sure you're well versed in all of that. So I've just felt guided to share my journey as an answer to not being quiet. So I left my husband in October 2nd, 2017. I took my son, we went to a domestic violence shelter for 2 weeks, and then we lived in a hotel for 3 months. And then 2018 was about rebuilding and learning trust. I'm a devoted student of A Course in Miracles for about 10 years now. So that teaching has definitely been front and center, and it really is about trust. And so I just share my journey as I go along. I would say I'm a good writer. And I don't really know if specifically I need to tell you where I am, but just know that I am doing the work and I'm showing it. I've experienced, my car being repossessed and being in eviction, and like really very driven to uncover what PS Tech does, which is the to remove the subconscious belief that's keeping me from doing the thing that I know that I'm here to do. And I'm just sort of a nerd, and I own my nerdship well. My website's called Ancora Imparo. My business is called Ancora Imparo, which means I'm still learning in Italian. And that really is just who I am. I'm always learning. It really wasn't until I became a mom that I started to notice a shift, real shift toward being a teacher. I mean, naturally as a mom, you want to teach, but it sort of stirred within me this greater desire to teach larger amounts of people. And so I use Instagram as well as Facebook to teach. I use those as tools.
So at the same time you were noticing a shift in your marriage in the
Yes,
negative, you were also noticing a shift toward wanting to share your journey and
yes,
put whatever you were learning and experiencing out there as you went along.
yep, yes. And I know I'm making an impact. Most people, so we already talked about it's a green light for potty mouth, but most people don't have the fucking balls to say the things that I say. And they're just watching. They're like, they're watching. Most people don't go into the arena. What Brene Brown says, unless you're getting your ass kicked in the arena, I really don't want to hear your feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of the thing that I'm learning is, keeping your surroundings to people who are also doing this work. The idea around family has shifted collectively recently. And, I've seen more posts this past year about toxic family than I ever have in my entire life. I think I'm really grateful that we're finally starting to give ourselves permission to cut out family members that are toxic for us. So
Yeah, and that's been something I've been working with clients about for quite some time. And not only family members, but toxic friendships that have been gone on for a long time, and just feeling this sense of guilt or requirement to keep people in our lives just because they've been there for a long time or just
yes,
because there's a blood tie. And to me, if they're toxic, you need to get out of that situation. You do not need to continue to put yourself in toxic situations and let people walk all over you. You're just enabling them to continue their behaviors.
yes, yes,
And as empaths, I think we also try to fix everybody, try to make everybody feel better, try to take away their stuff by taking it on ourselves. So not only are we harming ourselves by letting them abuse us and be toxic toward us, and also by taking on their stuff, but then we're also taking away their journey. They chose to come here as a spirit to experience a certain journey, and they chose the problems they have.
yes,
And if we continue to try to fix that or take it away from them and kind of anesthetize them from their problems, then that just keeps them in the cycle of living in that toxicity, where if you stop enabling them and stop allowing them to treat you that way and start putting up boundaries, they are forced to start looking at their own garbage. And if we're constantly fixing it for them, they are not forced to look at their own garbage, and they don't ever get to the point where they realize, I am the one creating the misery in my life. And that's the point where most of us have to get to. We have to get to a point of, I'm the one creating my misery, and I can't live like this anymore, before any of us are ready to heal and move on and get to where we need to be. So by trying to fix everybody and be okay with everybody and allow them to continue doing what they're doing, we're messing up the whole system.
out of our own innocence.
Right.
And that's the thing if I may, I love that you said all of that. Part of my nerdy learning is, as I've learned that who I am in the world, it fits in a box called codependency. It's just a word. I understand that now. I have done a lot of learning around it. Education is the key to liberation.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you know better, you do better. But if you don't know better, you don't do better. So education is key. When I first heard the word codependency, I was very resistant. It took months for me to even hear the word without recoiling back, getting defensive. But when I was finally open to it, as things started to progress and disintegrate, I finally was on my knees and I was like, okay, well, I feel like I've got to look at this word. And to be honest with you, it has literally answered every single question of my life. It has helped me see how I was groomed. I'm using that word on purpose. It helped me see why I never understood. I knew something was wrong in my parental family house, but I didn't have words to explain. And so the other thing I want to point out with regards to them is there is no, like, the higher level of it all. The as a devoted student of A Course in Miracles, we teach it, or we learn that everything's about projection.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, everything that I see in you that triggers me is actually a projection of the things that are unhealed inside of me.
Right.
And it's a really great opportunity for me to look at myself. But as I did a live stream last week about, as you're going up in your consciousness, in your learning, at first, it's, in order to get up to the next level, it's easier for us to say they're doing this to me, and I, whatever. So there's a level where when you start learning about codependency, that it's easier at a point to say that codependents are innocent and narcissists are the bad ones, or enablers are the bad ones, or whomever.
Right.
And that helps you go up the ladder at first. At some point, though, we must move to a higher level. And that's where I am currently, is that my ex-husband has not done anything to me. I've only done this to myself. And everything that I am triggered by in him is actually something that's going on inside of me. And it's my responsibility to look at it.
Right. Yes. And the big piece that I often talk about in relationships overall is when we are bothered by something in the relationship, aside from toxicity. I mean, if there's abuse, I'm always like, get the hell out. But
yeah.
When we are dissatisfied, when we're feeling like they're not fulfilling us, or they're not giving us whatever it is that we want or need or expect or whatever, the person who wants to fix the relationship, the person who just thinks something is missing, is the one who needs to do the work, the one who needs to fix themselves. Yes. Not to say the other person doesn't have any work to do.
Oh, they do.
But, right, of course. But it's just really amazing how much we point the finger at the other person, and how much of a ridiculous standard that we create in our heads, in our imaginations. When we first meet somebody, we create this whole image of who we think they are and how we think they will treat us. And it's not the reality. I mean, of course, a lot of it's based on the honeymoon phase of the relationship, where they are doing a lot of really great stuff, but we often add to that. We expand on that, and we think that this person is going to fulfill all of our dreams, all of our unmet needs that have been unmet our whole lives. And then when the honeymoon phase ends and they show us who they really are, which is who they've been all along, our illusion is shattered and we blame it on them. Mm-hmm. And it was all us in the first place building this.
The part that fascinates me, that I feel, where we're either about to start going, or because I sort of feel like we're already there, is to use PS Tech and tools to reprogram the subconscious mind on the collective beliefs. Because what you're talking about is not an April thing, or a Kerilyn thing, or a my mom thing, or my dad thing. It's the collective thing.
Yes.
So it feels intuitively congruent that what the work that we really need to do is the collective belief, not the individual belief, because I don't know about you, but we are one. And the belief in separation, which is at the core of the teachings of A Course in Miracles, is that what gets us into trouble. I'm up here because I'm doing this work, and well, you're down here because you're not. And so that keeps us separate.
Right.
But intuitively where we need to go is to move into the collective unprogramming, reprogramming. And that there is no they, there is no parents, there is no grandparents, there is no ancestry, there is no this. And if you get like quantum physics on it all, which I love all this stuff, that time, past and present and future all sort of happening at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And that we really need to heal on a quantum collective level. Not, I think that's what's coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And people like you and me talking about subjects like this are at the forefront of helping the collective heal.
Right. And I love the message that when we are healing something within ourselves, we are healing it for our ancestors and for our descendants while we're clearing it in ourselves. And so, while all of that is so ethereal, when we do something like PS Tech or, any other sciency kind of
Yeah.
technique that doesn't seem like energy work, there's still a level of energy work being done.
Yeah.
And it still filters down into, what we pass on to others and what has come before us. And we can start to see shifts in our own parents and things like that. And that just ripples outward and does affect more and more people. And the more people who have cleared their own crap, the more it naturally clears it for everyone.
Absolutely.
And makes it easier for everyone to figure out how to clear things for themselves as well.
And like and not to go into the stratosphere, but to really get to a high level, like matrixy sort of level, is that we're not our bodies. We're physically, there's science behind this is just neurons and protons and electrons and atoms right here and here and here and all of this and this computer and like we are not, we're simply energy. Money is energy, the past is energy, the future is energy. It's not like solid and whatever. And like that's also what's coming. We're in the process of actually leaving the matrix and seeing that we can not manipulate in a negative way, but that we can influence and shift it and play with it in order to create the reality that we are aiming for.
Yes.
And the ultimate is to really return to who we really are, which is like light and whatever. That's I'm getting like out of stratosphere.
My whole spiritual version of, what we're doing here, it's almost like our soul is playing a video game.
Yes.
When they came out with the game Sims.
Yeah.
And you would just go and make this person that you created, and you got to pick how they looked and what they wore and what they did for a job and all of that. And you just you feed them, you make them go to the bathroom, you connect them with other humans, and it was just I remember I would get so sucked into playing that game and get lost in it for hours and then go, wait a minute, what am I doing? I could be living my own life and, doing all kinds of interesting things with my own life. And instead I'm operating this thing that I created. And I feel almost like that's what our souls are doing. It's just kind of living an experience through us in the physical. It's like, hey, I'm going to put my soul in this being for a while and see what this person can get up to. And it's just like another way for the divine to experience something outside of the oneness that we just are naturally. And just be able to see what's it like to be alone. What's it like to be in an incestual situation? What's it like to be homeless? What's it like to be a life coach? What's it like, just being able to kind of have all of these different experiences. But to us, it seems like it's this huge, long, drawn out thing that we're going through, but to our soul, it's just this momentary like video game. And then when they don't feel like doing it anymore, it's just like, okay, let's move on to a different video game. Let's do a different simulation, check something else out, or just hang out here in the oneness and the ethers. So that's kind of my view of it. And so I try to look at my own life like I'm playing a video game. And now that I've gotten to do so much of this subconscious work, and I recognize that I have the freedom to get over anything that could possibly, emotionally bother me. And then also am really starting to play now with what can I create and manifest in my life by
Yes.
implanting it. Because if you can implant something into your subconscious to the point
Yes.
where it buys it, if you
Yep.
can get your subconscious to
Yep.
buy into something,
Yep.
it completely changes your reality.
Completely. And I've been playing with that and like as well, very intensely. And like, I think we're very unanimous in our nerdiness. And like, I'm studying this like with fervor, because this is what I believe you and I, and the others are here to teach. So we're sort of in the go first, learning all about this. There are teachers that are ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
That are teaching us, and if they didn't teach the things that they're learning, then they wouldn't pass on. It's like here's the ancestral collective healing itself, one like person at a time. And it is our job, on my journey, just getting a little bit more specific. On my journey, I have gone down a path in my career that never felt congruent, and I kept finding myself getting laid off over and 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 over again in these weird situations. And because I'm intuitive, I hear spirit, or I hear my intuitive voice, whatever you'd like to call it. And I heard a voice at some point saying, how many jobs do you have to lose before you realize this is not your path? Like, this is going to keep happening until you start doing your real job. I know I didn't have that phrase real job 10 years ago. But a year ago, I found myself in another job that I didn't feel congruent with, and it was feeling really off. It was giving me money, but that was the trap that 97.99999% of us fall into, is the job for the money.
Mm-hmm.
That has got to shift. We've got to shift that to, when you're doing what you love, the money will follow. And that's part of this collective shift that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So
I kind of do a hybrid of that. When people want to shift into doing what they love, I always have people kind of taking the baby steps to get there. Like, okay, if you have to keep a day job to pay your bills for now, go ahead and do that. But start exploring something that is moving you in the direction of doing the thing that you love doing. Don't just sit there and, live in misery about the job that you have right now, and don't do anything to get yourself to the next step.
Right.
And then, maybe start doing, I don't know, some people like to do readings, some people like to do coaching, like whatever it is that you love, start doing some of that on the side as a hobby, maybe make a little bit of side money. And if you're really doing what you love and are meant to do, that will start to grow. And then maybe you can cut your day job down to part-time. And then that, then it'll start to grow and build. And this is what happened with me too. I was working in a spa, and it started to get a little icky around me, like with the other people I had to interact with and stuff. And I had started doing Reiki and built that up. And, I kind of was part-time at the spa at some point, and part-time doing Reiki on my own as my own business. And it just got so uncomfortable at some point to be at that spa anymore. It was just like torture to go in there. And, prior to all of this, it had been fine to be there. But it was like, once it was time for me to go, it was time for me to go. And it was very clear that it was time for me to go. It was like miserable to drag myself there. And my Reiki business was taken off like crazy at that point. So it's really true that you are supported, but you don't, I think a lot of people think, well, I just have to give up my security. I have to give up my day job and just
And
go
some, to
chase this
some you
dream.
do, to some you do. And some people have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I, part of my journey that I've been on in this past, I can say that that this is about trust. Part of what I'm supposed to teach is to trust. And, you know, I love that you segmented into this, because where my specialty with coaching is, I work with people who know they're afraid. Most people are too afraid to say they're afraid.
Hmm.
And I don't currently, my people are those that know they're afraid. Just getting to that step can take a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But once you know you're afraid, then you can start to make wiggly steps. But before you are even willing to say you're afraid, you're locked in
Mm-hmm.
with paralyzing fear. You're just going to keep complaining. That's a sign. Like, okay, complaining is natural. It's a human thing. We've been taught that. But like, are you complaining and taking action? Are you complaining and taking responsibility? Are you like, where are you? And there's no judgment. Like, you would never yell at a second grader for not understanding the concepts in 8th grade, and you would never give an 8th grader a 2nd grade test either. Like, there's no need to judge. Everybody is where they're supposed to be. But for me and who I serve people who who know that they're afraid, and are just start there. Because then you can talk these higher level things. If you can at least say, I know you're afraid. And they're like, oh, no. Most people use deflection or whatever. Oh, no, I'm not afraid. Okay. Clearly by your
Yeah.
reaction, you're saying that you are, but.
Well, I mean, if they weren't afraid, they would just go and do whatever it is that they want
Right.
doing.
Right. So, yeah. And in A Course in Miracles, it's either love or fear.
Hmm.
And in this world, there's really only two things, love or fear. But really, there's only love. But part of our journey is to realize that there really isn't anything to fear. But that's part of the journey.
Hmm. And, this is bringing up the whole, like, devil thing, like when our culture talks about the devil being this outside force, the king of hell and all of this. It's really, the devil is our ego.
Yes.
And it's the part of us that is most fearful.
Yes.
Now, on a scientific level, the subconscious mind, the subconscious mind's whole job is to try to keep us safe. So it's constantly in fear. The subconscious is just supposed to constantly be focused on what could go wrong, what could hurt us, emotionally, physically, whatever. So that's really, I think, what has been missing in so many therapies and modalities and religions and everything is, like, address the fear on the subconscious level that everybody experiences. I mean, the whole reason for the patriarchy and the whole reason that they suppressed women for so long was fear. They were petrified that we would get more powerful than them. And so let's tamp all of that down and kill everybody who's against that. And, so it's just amazing how much fear has been destructive, but that if you can convince the subconscious mind that you are safe in that situation, you're good to go. You can just move on and do the thing, and the fear is gone, and you're just confident and ready to go.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of getting there.
Yes.
And until now, there really haven't been tools to get it on that deep of a level.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that, the tools. So I get a little emotional about this, so forgive me. But I hated my mother for staying I knew something was wrong. And being the rebel in my family, I'm the one that like said, no, this is not right. And I got in trouble every time. And my mom said, basically, quiet, Carrie. And she taught me literally, Carrie, play the game and you'll get whatever you want from your dad. Right. It was primarily emotional and financial abuse. My dad made a lot of money for many years and threatened with around money and still does. And I hated her because she didn't leave and I knew she should leave. And I told her to leave when I was 14 years old. And she told me she was a willing victim and that was the role she played. And I had no remorse for her. So what naturally happened when you repress is, and there's just too much evidence right now. Christine Northrup is a OB. I don't know where she lives, but she did a video about physical illness and narcissistic abuse and like long-term systemic narcissistic abuse and how it creates physical illness. Mm-hmm. For 20 years, my mom's chronically ill with these mysterious illnesses.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Right. And I only recently in the past year watched this video with her saying this, and it answered everything. But, it wasn't until she passed away in May of 2017. And I found myself in the same place as my mother. Here I am like being like, I'm never going to be that mom. I'm never going to be her. I hate her. And I find myself in the same spot. It wasn't until that I have all these tools. I am talking to you. We have YouTube. I mean, when I started to first learn about codependency, I watched YouTube videos like a crazy person, just trying to soak up information so I could learn. My mom never she didn't even understand the word codependency if it ever came across her mouth. Right. She didn't have instant access where I could watch YouTube videos at 2:00 in the morning if I'm feeling panicky, or if I could do PS Tech, wherever, whenever, just plug some earbuds in and whatever, there you go. Like, it is understanding that as we evolve, the tools become like right in front of your face has helped me forgive everything that's happened before this. Mm-hmm. Because they didn't have what we have.
Right.
They didn't have tools that we have. I feel closer to my mother since she's passed and I've forgiven her because she didn't have what I have. She didn't have the opportunity to cut out family, like toxic family. Like, I cut my dad out of my life in January. And that would have never been an option. But there's so much advanced learning now about cutting out family members that are toxic or friendships that are like, it's giving us permission to do the things that generations of women and men and families have not been able to do. So we are evolving. We are, I go back to the Matrix. There's that scene in the Matrix where Neo remembers that he is Neo. And he takes like a deep breath in, and the Matrix sort of like expands around him for a second. That's where we are right now. As we remember who we are, we take that collective deep breath in, and we remember that we can influence everything around us. We are fucking powerful in what looks like magical. What PS Tech can do and what all of these tools can do appears magical. Quantum physics at the atomic level, shifting things, appears magical. But the tools are just going to get more, advanced. And at the same time, using ego, knowing there's a part of us that is too afraid of all of that, of us learning who we really are. So we can't just say that as we evolve in these amazing tools, there's going to be like offense, there's going to be defense. I'm not a sports person, so there's going to be the opposite. People who are going to be in resistance to this. And we just have to be patient and calm like Jesus and stay the course, and like one moment at a time and one step at a time, and just fall down, get back up, fall down, get back up, pick up a bigger tool, a bigger tool, a bigger tool. I'm rambling now. I apologize. But
Okay.
I love Will Smith on Instagram. He is a really great seeker. He's a seeker like us.
Mm-hmm.
And he does some great Instagram stories. And one of them is about how it's not your fault, it's your responsibility. And that is,
Yeah, I've seen that.
I
I love
like
it.
how he talks about it and how he, how he says it. And, it, and also embracing failure. He talks about failure. Successful people fail hard, fail often.
Mm-hmm.
We have got to shift the collective belief around failure.
Right.
Um, like all of these are tools that
Yeah.
we have got to hold within us and use.
Yeah.
And as mothers, we're in a great position to do that for our next generation with our spawn.
Mm-hmm.
I know, you know.
Yeah.
I get really passionate about all this, but yeah, this is our job to shift the collective thinking with all of these tools.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And something you said early on in all of that, and also early on in our conversation too, um, it really brought up, and I'm going to pause for a second because I have to kind of collect my thoughts around it. It had to do with the whole codependency. Oh, yes. Okay. So when we react to what someone else is doing, so, along the lines of the codependency thing, but just in general, like when we are triggered by others, it's usually for a couple of reasons. I mean, of course, it could be something threatening they're doing, and all right, so the fear comes up, and we may need to actually act to get out of that. But mainly, it's just the subconscious reacting in fear, and that's why we're reacting. But a lot of times, our reactivity has a root in the past.
Yes.
So, like when we are reacting to a boss who's being really condescending and intimidating, you want to look at who in my history has been condescending and intimidating and go back as early as possible. And usually, if you're really triggered by somebody who's being that way, chances are one of your parents probably acted that way. And it really made you feel helpless at that time, and you didn't know how to deal with it. And here it is coming up again. And so it's just like that child version of you coming forward all over again.
Yeah, that's a
When
great
that
point.
boss is in your face.
Yeah.
So, you've got that as one possible trigger. It's like somebody's reminding you of a wound from the past. Another one can be that if you see someone doing something that you would never do. So, my example is always like when I used to work in the spa, and women would just like sit down in front of me and tell me exactly how they wanted their facial done or their pedicure done or whatever. And so I didn't know what I was doing, and that they just wanted it this way, this way, this way, this way. And they were very like abrupt and like no nonsense about what they wanted. I would be so deeply offended. I didn't necessarily show it, but I would be so bothered by that. And it was because I didn't know how to ask for what I wanted at the time. And it had never really been okay for me to step up and ask for what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So it was this sense of, why are they allowed to do this when I would never, or when I was never allowed to?
Mm-hmm.
So that also is another version of triggering.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then there's also the, I hate this in this person because I do it myself and I don't like this about myself.
Projection.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
So there's so many layers to why what other people are doing or not doing can hurt and bother and trigger us.
Yeah.
And the more we are wrapped up in what other people are doing to us, for us, whatever, the more codependent, so to speak, that we are considered and that we're being, the more we're able to free ourselves from that and to just find ways to fulfill ourselves and to recognize that whatever reaction that we are having or whatever longing we are having is something inside of us that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
where the real healing and freedom and peace comes from, is
Absolutely.
not letting anyone else have power over whether you're going to be happy or at peace or have your needs met or whatever.
Yep. Absolutely. I love that you're bringing that up, because it's for me, like what really speaks is the tools, PS Tech as a tool. And two of the tools that you sort of mentioned as you said this were inner child work as a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Key right now.
Right. Yes.
Again, like I have been having more conversations with people, both with my clients as well as with my friends, about requiring to go back in meditation and talking to that little person, which that little person is really just our subconscious mind stuck in that loop, right?
Yes. Yes.
So there's the loop. So you deliberately use PS Tech as a tool, but then you can use meditation and meet that little person, and in order to change the paradigm,
Yeah.
that's
And
a tool number one.
I actually use PS Tech as inner child work,
Right.
because when I'm having someone address something in the present, let's say the angry boss, I let them kind of have their fit about the angry
That you say
boss.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I will also have them have the angry fit about dad,
Yeah.
have the angry fit about the teacher who acted that way and their ex that acted that way. And, just be able to step into those past versions of themselves and let that version of them, so that inner child, have their say in that moment. Like, I am a big proponent for having an angry fit at each of the individual players in your life while using the PS Tech track, so that you are letting that child have their tantrum, letting that child say everything and feel everything that was coming up, and then at the same time healing that on the subconscious level so that it doesn't ever have to hurt you again.
Yeah, I love it. I love this. It's imperative, it's imperative, and it's happening. And again, like we just have to, you and me and the teachers, if you're listening to this and you are a teacher, and even if you're because that's another thing, we're both student and teacher.
Right.
We're both student and teacher. So in 1 second, I teach you something, and in the next second, you teach me something, and then it goes back and forth. And when we can accept that there's no better or worse, that a teacher's not better than a student's not worse than a teacher, then we can remember who we really are, which is one. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm just going off on a tangent, but for people who don't know what their purpose is in their life, the question that I always ask people is, what is it that you can do all day and lose track of time? It's pretty easy. I always tell people, like, you don't need 5 weeks to learn what your purpose is. It's really what do you do when you're losing track of time? That's really key. Anywho's.
Yep.
So we must start doing this work more. We must start teaching it more. We must start talking about it more. We must start doing this more. And so if you're listening to this and you are a teacher, if you're listening to this and you're a student, and this feels congruent or it feels like a lift, maybe the only job you do is to talk about it with your friends. You say, I listen to a podcast and then you're teaching by just talking and sharing what you're learning. That's part of healing this collective.
That's why I really wanted to start this podcast. It's just like, I need to get word out about these tools and what they can do for you. And it needs to be available on a wider scale.
Yeah. And that's why I share publicly my journey as well, because I use a storytelling modality to teach.
Right.
Um, I'll be honest with you, April, seriously, I had absolutely no fucking clue that I would consider myself a writer. Like, that is still such a foreign concept for me to say that I'm a writer, but I love writing, and I do it all on my phone, sometimes in the middle of the night, and it's just stream of consciousness. But even going back to those emails back in 2001, it was easy. It was fun. I looked forward to it every day. But the idea of putting myself in the box of like, you're a writer, still now, it never crosses my mind. So that's just like a side note. But I want to mention one other tool that I'm only this is not a affiliate thing, but I'm just learning about this. But like, I'm learning this tool by this philosophy called Access Consciousness, which I really like some of their philosophy. And they teach this question called, who does it belong to? So when you're like spinning, like in thought, like whatever, like, who does that belong to? You question the belief that you're spinning about. Like, is that your belief? Or is that your dad's? Is that the teacher in second grade? Is that yours, or is that the country's? Is that yours, or is that the IRS's? Is that yours? Like, right. 99.99999% of all beliefs aren't even ours.
Right. Yeah.
And that's sort of what was triggering in me when you were saying that earlier. Like, part of the tool that we must start using is to question what we believe in and if it's ours to begin with, because most of the time it's not.
The scariest part about beliefs is that because so many of us are doing this conscious work, we understand that some of the beliefs are utterly ridiculous. So we think we don't believe that belief anymore. But our conscious mind doesn't believe it, but our subconscious still does. Yeah. And where that shows up is in our behaviors.
And in your life. All you have to do is look at your life. And the areas that are not working,
yes,
really is a reflection of where the subconscious mind has refused to accept the new belief.
Right.
And where you need to place more emphasis on reprogramming.
Yes. And so many of my clients want to skip directly to implanting positive beliefs. And I'm like, nope, you need to clear out the toxic waste dump before you start planting a garden. So you have fears blocking those positive things. You have beliefs blocking those positive things. Either you believe you don't deserve that, or it's not possible, or you'll be punished if you get it, or you're afraid something bad is going to happen if you get that thing. Like, there are so many things that you're carrying negatively that are keeping that positive thing from being able to take hold. So we can't skip directly to positive, 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 positive. You can repeat mantras all day. You can try to download them into your subconscious. But unless you get rid of the programming that's in the way of that, then it's never going to take.
Yep.
So that's the big piece.
I would say I challenge that it has to be scary, because then your subconscious starts to hear that it's scary. But like, we have got to start, and that's what I've been talking a lot about lately with regard to the subconscious mind is, and I'm going to use it as a tool, but like, we have got to, with fervor, start to plant safe into almost every single sentence we say. I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm safe to drink this water. I'm safe to drink. I'm safe to go for a walk. I'm safe to do this. I'm safe to take care of myself. I'm safe to because the subconscious mind is always trying to keep us safe. It has a lock on anything outside of this few things. You're not safe. But we've got to reprogram. Like, it's safe for me to paint my nails. It's safe for me to it's safe. It's safe. It's safe. Like, whatever. Like, it's got to become like a natural thing. Like, while we're in that, because part of the reason why we want to jump straight to positive is because we don't feel safe to feel those feelings. We don't feel safe to feel like a bear is coming to get, like, that's what the subconscious mind is basically ultimately doing. It's saying we're going to be eaten by a bear.
Right.
Like, why would I want to do this work of looking at my beliefs and my fears when it literally is going to make me feel like I'm going to be eaten by a bear? So we have got to infuse safe and be silly about it. Like, how many times did your child and yourself, when you were 1, start practicing the ABCs? I mean, Bruce Lipton is a great teacher, and he says it has to involve repetition. I know you teach that, like, over and over and over again. It's funny when I'm talking to clients and I say the same thing over and over to them. And they're like, I heard you the first time. I was like, no, I'm saying this on purpose to try to basically replant the seed. Like, I'm talking about codependency with a client. I'm like, well, as a codependent, and she's like, oh, I know you're codependent. I'm like, no, I'm saying it over and over again because you're not going to hear it once. Like, how many times did you say the ABC song to your kid? Like, dozens and dozens of times. How many times did they practice it in school? Does it like every day? They worked on 1 letter a day. Like, that is what it is going to take for us to really circumnavigate this. Repetition. Yeah, there's other tools, PS Tech, Psych-K, other things, other modalities, but at the core, like exercise, brushing your teeth every day, it needs to be, and rephrase, I'm working hard to shift from every time I say need to saying it would highly benefit me. It would highly benefit us to shift to bring in safe in almost every single thing we do. To use that word safe everywhere, all of the time. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah.
That's what it's going to take, because the subconscious mind is saying, warning, warning, bear, bear, warning, warning, bear. Like that's.
Yeah. And my take on that would be also to whatever that fear is that's coming up, to be able to clear that in the moment, which can immediately create that sense of, I am safe now. Because we can tell ourselves all day long, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. But unless we have convinced the subconscious mind that we are not unsafe, the subconscious is still going to be going, where's the threat? Where's the threat? Where's the threat? So being able to spend 10 or 20 minutes freaking out about the thing so that you don't have to then spend the rest of the day telling yourself you're safe about that thing is invaluable.
And I would love to, and before we go, I don't know how long you intend to do this. I would love to do one with you, because as I'm talking, I have one coming up.
Yep.
I don't know if that's something that you were part of your like itinerary.
Yep.
It like I can see it applying in my own life right now as we talk. Like, there's something coming up that's making me go, warning, warning, bear. But like, it's literally like coming up over and over again.
So what is it?
Well, my biggest issue is money.
Mm-hmm.
Where I am in my evolution is that I can create it. I can ask for it, but there's an old thing about, gosh, and you can tell when someone's really at the core of it because they can't even say it. I literally, over the past year, April, this is trippy as fuck. But as I've really gotten to the core of this work, I've developed a stutter. I've never had a stutter in my entire life. Does this make sense to you?
Yes.
It looks by the look on your face that this isn't foreign, but like I literally will start stuttering the closer I get to the root of it. And it will be so, and I've never stuttered in my life.
Yeah.
And I can already feel
how you can tell it's big.
I can already tell that I like want to stutter, and I know that I'm telling you, this is not something that I am doing consciously. It's tripping me out. I never had this before. I'm sweating. I'm deliberately, like, before deliberately going into my biggest fears, I never had a stutter in my life. But now, me saying the thing that it is making me want to, like, just stutter. But it really involves asking people to work with me and invest in me. I'm good at begging because of my upbringing. I can
Mhm.
beg for what I need easily. I can manipulate others because I know on my codependent journey that part of codependency is grooming, and we've been groomed to beg. So I'm good at manipulation and begging, and I can get what I want that way. But like having someone see my worth and being and willing, like just standing here and being like, I'm worth it, and someone wanting to come and work with me and give me money because they think I'm worth it. Bear, warning, warning, like that. Like it's very intense. Like sort of the belief is that you're not worth it to invest in.
Mm-hmm.
And it is intense.
Okay, so what I would do in that case is I would first use the click track
Uh-huh.
to picture that, whatever about that makes you most uncomfortable, like actually picture it unfolding and noticing how that feels to you. Just play it out like most intense case, I would say worst case
Rejection.
scenario.
It feels like rejection.
Okay. Yep. So what
Um,
if you pictured somebody saying to you, you're not worth that? And,
that would
just,
trigger like an old belief. That would be like being on the playground and not no one wanting to play. That's where it
yes,
is. That's where it is.
yes. Okay,
No one
perfect.
wants to play.
So we should probably also follow it up with the belief blasters, but first I would do the PS Tech click track and start with being rejected because you're not worth it or you don't have anything to offer, whatever. Like just picture a client actually saying that to you, and then go through your history, your whole timeline of everything that feels like a similar rejection, and have it be that same thing, like other kids feeling like you didn't have anything to offer them, or you weren't worthy of playing with. And
Or you're too much. Really, that sort
right.
of is the message. You're too much.
Okay, yeah. So so with the client rejection, have them be like you're too much and
You're
whatever.
too much money. You're too out there. You're too like that.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And then just go back through and all the times where people have treated you like you were too much, told you flat out you were too much. Um, Go back as early as possible. And I would include childhood tantrums, even if you don't have a clear memory of them, just knowing that your parents reject you when you're being too much.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
punished
Punished.
immediately for being too much. So that kind of thing, like go back as young as young as you can assume that they, rejected your behavior as being too much, too intense, too whatever. And that could be infancy, that could be toddlerhood, that could,
Yep.
so acknowledge all of it. So you start with where it's the most intense. So right now, what's most intense for you is that fear that you're going to be rejected by clients, that they're going to say you're too much, and all of that. And you get good and worked up about that.
Yeah.
So you get that feeling front and center, really strong, and then you just start listing. Like you take that feeling and you apply it to toddlerhood, infancy, childhood stuff with your parents, with teachers, with other kids, with other relationships, and just kind of go through your whole life, and you can just kind of cycle through all of those different things, going back and forth between all of it. So it doesn't have to be in linear order.
Yeah.
And your brain will even pop in a few that you weren't expecting too. So you can just kind of include those.
And you're doing this while you're doing the click track.
Yes. Yep. So why don't we do that together? And we will be right back with the results afterward. Okay, so we are back after round one with Kerilyn basically doing a round of the click track on the sense of feeling like she's being rejected for being too much, whether it's charging too much or sharing too much or just being too much of a personality or whatever. And so just doing a whole click track on how that makes her feel, how that makes her react. So, Kerilyn, what number would you say you got to intensity wise at its highest point through that track?
At the beginning, I mean, it definitely, I've heard that message all my life. So it's like high. It was 8, 9.
Okay.
Um, I
And if you think about it now, like if you were to picture a client or, maybe just someone on Facebook or somebody telling you you're too much.
Someone did yesterday. They
Okay.
said, "You're too much, geez," and I was like, "Okay."
Okay. So picture like as though they're about to say that to you right now. And what number would you say your reaction to that would be right now?
Like a 4.
Good.
Yeah, definitely like a 4.
That's
Um,
better. That's better than an 8 or a 9.
yeah, absolutely.
So the recommendation would be to do probably one or two rounds if necessary, but probably one more round, I would say, would take care of that. But I'm going to have you do that at home and we'll
Yeah,
check in maybe a week or two and kind of see where you're at with the whole thing
sounds good.
as kind of a revisit. But I do want to do a belief blasters with you real quick as well.
Okay.
So I would do another click track at home that is exactly like the round you just did, just to
Yes.
finish off that particular fear. Now, the belief, I kind of want to troubleshoot with you a little bit to kind of get it so that it feels perfect to you. So, do you feel like the belief is people will reject you if you're too much?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, I'm just going to count it out because it needs to be between 7 to 12 words long. So people would reject me if I was too much. That's plenty long enough. So we don't need to add, like, I had the belief that or anything like that. So throughout the Belief Blasters track, you're just going to be saying in a loop in your head, people would reject me if I was too much. And then you're trying to prove it. So you're giving examples. You're, very similar to what you were just doing, only it's more about trying to believe it than it is about feeling the feelings about it. You can feel any emotions that do come up, but it's more about trying to believe that as much as you possibly can, trying to hold on to that belief, trying to prove that belief with all of your examples from your life, including that person saying that to you yesterday, including your fears that people will reject you as a coach or anything else, and then other times where you have clearly been rejected for being too much, or
Hmm.
at least in your perception, feeling like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we will be right back with the results from the Belief Blasters. Now we're back from doing a Belief Blasters on you didn't have to do I had the belief. So it was I would
I would
be
be
rejected
rejected
if I was too
if I
much.
was too much.
Okay. And did you find that the words were starting to disappear while you were doing it? Like you were having a hard time like holding on to the words themselves?
Yes, the interesting thing was is probably I was still holding on to the feeling of the belief, but there got to a point and a lot of memories came in.
Yep.
A lot
That will happen.
that reinforced the belief. But there was a moment when I let go of it and I like felt like I took a deep breath, and from that moment on I could see the belief like written on like a I could see it, and I could still then it became like I wasn't in the movie but I was watching the movie.
Right.
um
Yes.
so I could still see the belief actually, but it wasn't mine anymore.
That's awesome. Were you also then, after that point, having proof to the opposite show up? Were you having examples where it wasn't quite true anymore?
No, yet. I think I think that what I know about myself, I know that's their stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I have so part of what like went away is I have believed that I was too much from everybody else. But I am a big personality, and I have always been. I mean, some of the memories go back to like being in jazz dance class, and I always was the one that wanted to do, like all of these memories that came up where I was not afraid to like be myself.
Right.
And that's their stuff that I
Yes.
am being myself.
So what you're triggering in them what I was talking about earlier, where it was this sense of I would never do that. That's what they're feeling is I would never act like that, or I was never allowed to act like that. How dare she be herself? How dare she be too much? How dare she put herself out there like that
Yeah.
when I'm too afraid to, or I would get punished if I did that, or people wouldn't accept me if I did that. So how dare she?
And you had said, one of the things that you had said in the beginning of doing this exercise is you're too much for how much you share. And so I'm bringing that one up on purpose because I share a lot on Facebook and on Instagram and all that stuff. And I have gotten quite a bit of kickback about I don't like how much you share. And it triggers that old thing. But that's not.
Now, I want to point something out because
Yes.
at the beginning of when I was introducing you, I specifically did not say you were too much because of what you share. I said that you shared in a very vulnerable way and you shared a lot of vulnerable things. That when you have the belief that you will be rejected for being too much, you will automatically hear people saying you're too much,
Like
even
the
when they,
reticular activating system. I don't know if you know
right.
reticular activating system. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
your brain is going to pick up on too much.
Yes.
It's going to look for too much.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the yes.
So you're seeing everything through the filter of expectation of because these people have treated me this way and reacted to me this way, then everybody is. And so anytime anybody's saying anything about that, then it is a negative judgment on you.
Yes.
When it could be neutral, it could be
Yes.
positive, and yet
Yes.
because it's being brought up, you feel automatically like
Yes.
this is a negative judgment on me.
Yes.
So
And
doing
I can use you as an example, and I can be very transparent because it's who I am. Is I would be making assumptions that you are thinking I'm too much because of how much I share. Like she probably thinks I'm too much because of this. Like, but I don't know. But because I'm so used to bear, warning, I'm already setting myself up before even knowing or asking to begin with. And that's what perpetuates the belief and to begin with.
exactly.
So I don't know that you think I'm too much for how much I share.
Right.
I know that can't be true anymore. It can't be true anymore that I know people think I'm too much. There are people that do, but I don't know how many that don't.
Right.
So I can't make the assumption that everybody does.
And how many people are benefiting from you sharing what you share?
I mean, I think if I were making again another assumption, like if you hadn't seen how much I shared, you might not have been drawn to do this in the first place. But I do think, yeah, the belief that I've been too much has been there since I was little. and I think it is for a lot of people, specifically like leaders, but the is that I don't know if some people love it, you
Yes.
know,
Yeah. And that's your people.
and those are your people.
Right. Yeah. You
So
really have to be able to trust that you're going to turn off the people that are not meant to be part of your tribe, and you're going to turn on the people who are.
right, and that's what was happening toward the end of the belief blaster. Isn't that I could see that belief, but it wasn't attached to me anymore.
Right.
It wasn't mine. It was, they're not my people. Um,
Yeah, because I mean, with your parents, it was their own resistances and their own pain and what they had been taught. And so that was their stuff. And with the other kids, it was, whatever they had been punished or shamed for growing up. And same thing with anybody that you're, sharing to on social media or anything like that. It's anyone who's reacting negatively to what you're sharing. It's really a gift of showing them what they still need to heal and work on themselves.
yep, and that's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Protection.
Right.
Yeah, I'm grateful that we did this.
So I think it would probably be good to follow up with one or two more rounds of the click track at home, just to really get whatever fear or pain is left. And this time, I would take it to a whole other level. Like, really have the angry fit tantrum in your head. Swear, be like a toddler who's going all out, no filter, and just really be upset about how effing tired you are of dealing with people rejecting you for you being too much. Like,
Yeah, go
really,
out.
really, really go out. Yeah. Um, think of, you're a 3-year-old with a severe potty mouth, and that's who I want to have this fit when you do this round on your own. And then afterward, think about what the person said to you yesterday, or think about what if everybody on Facebook suddenly was like, you're too much, I'm going to unfollow you, or I would never work with you because you're too much, whatever. Think about a bunch of those things coming in. And if you can just kind of roll your eyes and go, oh, there they go again, projecting their stuff on me, then you're good to go. But if there's still any kind of fight or flight response to it, then you need another round. So
Yeah,
that's kind of how you measure. And then we can check in maybe a week or two and kind of see where you're at with, your
yeah,
thoughts around that, and what may have shifted physically in your life, and definitely what has shifted emotionally in your
right,
life.
right. Absolutely. I'm grateful. That's what this tool is amazing, is it does work. I mean, if you just happen to stumble upon this podcast and you're like, what is PS Tech? Like, it is magical that
Yeah,
it works.
yeah, it really
Actually, the funny
does.
thing is the more resistance you have to it working, the more it works.
Yes, that's the beauty of it. It's like, it doesn't matter if you hate it, doesn't matter if you think it won't work. It just doesn't matter. It works. So, and just so people playing along at home, if people want to play along at home, in the description to the podcast, there is a link to how to use these tools. It shows you where to go to download them. It shows you exactly how I use them to get to the root of the issue, so that you don't just get relief from a specific situation, but from that whole trigger and theme throughout the rest of your life. So I walk people through that. And so if you want to use these tools at home, you can absolutely check out those links and learn how to do that as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for inviting me here and playing along with me and helping me to continue on my healing.
Thank you so
That's
much
what
for
this is
coming
all
on.
about.
It's been a really awesome discussion. I've
Yeah, I love it.
totally enjoyed it. And actually, coming back to something that you mentioned earlier, um, the access consciousness thing. I actually took their Access Bars training.
Yep.
So I was a bars practitioner for a
Oh,
while. Every once in a while, if I'm doing energy work on someone, I'll implement a little bit of it if I feel compelled. But I love the statement, how does it get any better than
better than
this?
that. Yeah.
I love that. It's like
Yeah.
you could be having the worst possible day and say, how does it get any better than this? And you're just kind of asking the universe, like, can you make this better? Or you could be having like the best day possible and go, how does it get any better than this? And
Right.
you're asking the universe, like, how can we up the ante on what's already good?
The interesting thing is that for me, when I say, how does it get any better than this? I can literally feel neuro, and this might be, I might be being being a little melodramatic about it. I can own that, but like I literally almost feel neurotransmitter pathways just opening, because what's happening is when you say, how does it get any better than this? Your brain looks for opportunities for it to get better than this. So,
Right.
we don't have time to do this today, but like the conversation around is it really the universe, or is it really our brain?
Right.
And that, so
Yeah.
like
I
when
go
I
back
say,
and forth.
yeah, I
I
go back and
address
forth
both
too.
just in case, just to be safe. I'm
Yeah.
like, hey universe, hey
Yeah.
subconscious,
Yeah.
like here's
Me
what I
too.
want.
Me too. Yeah. But like my brain or my subconscious mind seeks for possibility when I hear how does it get any better than this?
Yeah.
And then you literally, like, if you're conscious enough, or you literally stop and you're like, how does it? And then you start thinking about, how does it get any better than this? And then you start thinking about it. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I like that too.
And I think it's a good finish for us because
Yeah.
we can send everybody off with how does it get any better than
How does
this?
it get any better than this?
Thank you,
Amen,
Carrie Lynn.
sister. Thank you so much too. I had so much fun.
It's been awesome.
It
All
is.
right.
So y'all have a great day.
Thank you.